My late fiance's family all want the ring he bought for me, so they took me to court. John died 3 months after proposing. We were supposed to get married in August. Instead, I planned his funeral in March. His parents called me 2 days after the accident, crying, saying they couldn't afford a proper service. I didn't even think twice. I emptied our wedding account, the one we'd been building together for 2 years. Every penny we'd saved for the venue, the catering, the photographer, all of it went to giving John the funeral he deserved. The morning after we buried him, I was still in the black dress from the service when his brother knocked on my door. He didn't ask how I was doing. He just said he needed the ring back. I was confused. I asked him why, and he looked me straight in the eye and said the ring had been in their family for 5 generations, passed down from their great-great-great-grandparents. He said it belonged to the family, not to me. I told him that was impossible. I was there when John bought it. We went to this jewelry store that makes custom pieces inspired by fantasy movies. John picked out the design, paid for it with his credit card, and proposed that same night. The ring was 2 sizes too big, so we went back the next week and exchanged it for the right size. I still had the receipt with both transactions, John's signature, everything. His brother's face turned red. He called me a liar and said I must have faked the paperwork. Then he stormed out. Within an hour, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. John's mom, his dad, his sister, his aunts, all of them calling and texting saying I stole a family heirloom. They said I was dishonoring John's memory by keeping something that wasn't mine. I blocked most of them. But then I got a letter from a lawyer. They were suing me for the ring, and they were demanding I reimburse them for the funeral costs because apparently I had no right to plan it without their permission. I couldn't believe it. I'd paid for everything, the casket, the flowers, the burial plot, all of it, and now they wanted me to pay them back. I hired a lawyer and showed him everything. The receipt from the jewelry store with the date and John's name, the exchange paperwork showing we swapped sizes, photos I'd taken of the ring the night he proposed with the metadata showing the date, and bank statements proving I'd withdrawn the money for the funeral. We went to court, and I won. The judge looked at their claims, looked at my evidence, and dismissed the case in under 20 minutes. He even made a comment about wasting the court's time. I thought that nightmare was finally over. Then last week, John's sister found me on Instagram under a fake account. She sent me a long message saying she just got engaged, but her boyfriend can't afford a ring. She said, since I'm not engaged anymore, I should give her John's ring so it can actually be used for a wedding instead of sitting in my jewelry box. When I said no, she lost it. She started messaging me from different numbers, different social media accounts, even had her friends contact me saying I was selfish and heartless. My phone was on the table during lunch with my friend Kate when another message popped up. Kate read it and asked what was going on. I explained everything and she got quiet. Then Kate grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. John came to see me 2 weeks before he died. She'd never mentioned this. She said he seemed paranoid, kept looking over his shoulder in the coffee shop. He gave her a sealed envelope and made her promise to only open it if something happened to him. She'd been too scared to open it after the funeral, but she ran home and got it now. Inside was a will John had written by hand. The last line made me drop the paper. It said if he died under suspicious circumstances, I should check the brakes on his car because his brother had been asking strange questions about them. I stared at the paper in my hands, reading the words over and over until they started to blur. Kate was sitting across from me at the coffee shop, watching my face with this look like she wasn't sure if she'd done the right thing by showing me. My hands were shaking so bad I had to put the will down on the table between us. What do you mean he seemed paranoid? I asked her. My voice came out weird, kind of hollow. Kate pushed her hair back behind her ear. I mean, he kept checking the parking lot through the window, and when the door opened, he'd basically jump. I asked him if everything was okay, and he just said he couldn't explain it yet, but that he needed me to keep this safe. She pointed at the envelope. He made me swear not to open it unless something happened to him. And then when I heard about the accident, I don't know. I thought maybe he was just stressed about the wedding or work or something. I didn't want to make his death into some conspiracy theory, you know? I did know. Or at least I understood why she'd think that. But now, sitting here with his handwritten words in front of me, talking about his brother and brake tampering, I couldn't just ignore it. We need to find out what happened to his car, I said. Kate nodded slowly. The one from the accident? Wouldn't that be, totaled? Yeah, but the insurance company would have stored it somewhere. At an impound lot or something? I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my contacts, trying to remember the name of the insurance adjuster I dealt with after John died. They keep them for investigations and stuff. It took me 20 minutes and 3 different phone calls, but I finally got connected to the right impound yard. I told them I needed photos of the car for closing out the insurance claim, which wasn't exactly a lie. The guy on the phone sounded bored, like he dealt with this kind of thing every day. Let me pull up the record, he said. I could hear him typing. Okay, so that vehicle was released about 3 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. Released? To who? Looks like a family member. Has documentation showing he was authorized to claim it. Name here is... More typing. Names listed as the brother. Said he wanted to restore it as a memorial project. I thanked him and hung up before I could say something I'd regret. Kate was watching me with wide eyes. His brother took the car, I said. 3 weeks ago. That's really weird, right? Kate's voice went up at the end like a question. Why would he want a totaled car? I didn't answer because we both already knew why. If John was right about the brakes being tampered with, his brother would want that car gone before anyone could look at it properly. I drove straight to his house. Didn't call, didn't text, just showed up and parked across the street. His garage door was open, and he was in there messing around with some tools. I got out of my car and walked right up his driveway. He looked up when he heard my footsteps and his whole face changed. "What are you doing here?" "Where's John's car?" I asked. He put down whatever he was holding and wiped his hands on his jeans. "I don't know what you're talking about. The impound yard said you picked it up 3 weeks ago. You told them you were going to restore it." I crossed my arms. "So where is it?" "I had it scrapped," he said quickly. Too quickly. It was too painful to look at. Brought back memories. "Show me the receipt." He laughed, but it sounded forced. "I paid cash. Didn't keep it." "Which scrapyard?" "I don't remember the name." "Look, why are you asking me about this?" He took a step toward me and I took a step back. "John's gone. The car's gone. Just let it rest." I left without saying anything else, but my heart was pounding the whole drive home. As soon as I got back to my apartment, I started calling scrapyards. There were 3 in the area near his house and I called all of them. None of them had any record of processing John's car in the past month. He'd lied about scrapping it, so if he didn't scrap it, where was it? I spent the next 2 days calling storage facilities near his address. Most of them wouldn't give me any information over the phone, but on the 4th one, I got lucky. The manager was this older woman who sounded like she didn't really care about the rules. "Yeah, I remember that guy," she said when I described him. "Paid 6 months upfront in cash for a climate-controlled unit. Real eager to get it locked up quick." "When was this?" "Let me check my log here. I heard papers rustling. Looks like 2 weeks after. Let me see. March 15th. 2 weeks after John died." I thanked her and hung up. I had a friend from college who'd become a mechanic. His name was Tony, and he'd actually worked on John's car a few times before. I called him and explained the situation, leaving out some of the crazier details because I didn't want him to think I'd lost it. "So you think someone messed with his brakes?" Tony asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Can you tell if someone did that?" "Depends on how bad the crash was. If the brake lines were cut, we'd need to find the section that was damaged. But after an accident like that, everything's going to be mangled anyway." He paused. "You'd basically need to find a clean cut that couldn't have come from the impact." "Could you look at it if I found the car?" "Yeah, I could take a look, but we'd need to actually see it first." I made an appointment with Tony for the weekend, then sat in my apartment trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't just break into a storage unit. That was illegal. But I also couldn't let this go. Not when John had literally written down his suspicions before he died. In the end, I went to the police. I brought everything with me. The handwritten will, the court documents from the Ring lawsuit, printouts of all the texts and calls from John's family, the info about the storage unit, the fact that his brother had lied about scrapping the car. I sat in the police station for 40 minutes before a detective finally called me back to his desk. His name was Detective Hayes, and he looked like he'd been up for 3 days straight. He listened to my whole story without interrupting, occasionally jotting things down in a notebook. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Okay, so let me get this straight. Your fiance died in a car accident 3 months ago. His family sued you over a ring. Now you have a handwritten will suggesting his brother might have tampered with his brakes. I know how it sounds," I said. "I'm not saying I don't believe you." He tapped his pen against the notebook. "But proving something like this, that's going to be tough. The accident report said it was mechanical failure. Brakes failed going down a hill. So look at the car. See if the brakes were actually broken or if someone cut them." He looked at me for a long time. "You know where the car is?" "I know where I think it is." Detective Hayes said he'd look into it, which didn't exactly fill me with confidence, but it was better than nothing. I left the station feeling like I'd just dumped all this weight onto someone else's shoulders, and now I had to wait and see if they'd do anything with it. 3 days later, Detective Hayes called me. "We got a warrant for the storage unit. Car's there, covered with a tarp. We're having a forensic mechanic examine it. How long will that take? Could be a while. The damage from the crash is pretty extensive, but we'll see what we can find." I tried to go about my normal life while I waited, but it was basically impossible. I kept thinking about John in those last few weeks, how he'd been quieter than usual, how he'd checked the mirrors more when he was driving, how he'd asked me to keep copies of important documents at my place instead of his. All these little things I'd written off as wedding stress. A week after the warrant, I was at home making dinner when someone started pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw John's brother standing in the hallway. He was pounding so hard I thought the door might actually break. I pulled out my phone and started recording before I opened it, just in case. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled as soon as the door opened. "You're destroying our family with these accusations." I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I just showed the police what John wrote. John was mentally unstable. Everyone knew it. That will doesn't mean anything. His face was red and he was practically spitting. "You're going to regret this. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll make sure everyone knows what a psycho you are." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm telling you what's going to happen if you don't back off." I held up my phone so he could see I was recording. "Then I guess I'll have evidence of that too." He stared at the phone, then at me, then turned and stormed down the hallway. I locked the door and sent the video to Detective Hayes right away. A few days later, Hayes called again. The forensic mechanic found something. There's a section of the brake line that shows signs of being cut before the crash. The cut's clean, deliberate, not consistent with road debris or normal wear. I had to sit down. So someone actually did it. That's what it looks like. We're treating this as a homicide investigation now. The words hung in the air. Homicide. Murder. Someone had killed John on purpose. There's something else you should know, Hayes continued. We talked to some of John's coworkers. Apparently, his brother had been pressuring him to take out a big life insurance policy about 6 months before your wedding. He never mentioned that to me. According to the coworker, John refused. Said he was saving for the wedding and a house. The brother got really angry about it. They didn't speak for about 2 months after that. I remembered those 2 months. John had said they'd gotten into a fight over something stupid and he was giving his brother space. I'd never pushed for details. Why would his brother want him to have life insurance? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Because if John wasn't married yet, the brother would be listed as the beneficiary by default. That's how these policies usually work, if you don't specify someone else. I felt sick. How much money are we talking about? The policy he was pushing for? $200,000. After Hayes hung up, I just sat there on my couch staring at nothing. $200,000. That's what John's life was worth to his own brother. Over the next week, the police investigation moved faster than I expected. They found out John's brother had serious gambling debts, like $80,000 worth of debt. Loan sharks had been threatening him. He'd already sold his own car and missed 2 mortgage payments. The house was basically about to go into foreclosure. Detective Hayes told me all this over coffee at a diner near my apartment. Guy was desperate, he said. And desperate people do stupid things. You mean they kill their own family? Sometimes, yeah. I thought about something John had mentioned in passing once. His brother borrowed John's car a few days before the accident. He said his car was in the shop. Hayes wrote that down. We're checking that. Guy works at an automotive parts store, so he'd have the knowledge and access to tools. You think you have enough to arrest him? We're getting there. Hayes stirred his coffee. The prosecutor wants to make sure we have a solid case before we move forward. But yeah, we're close. 2 days later, John's brother was arrested. I found out from a news alert on my phone. The headline was something like, "Local man arrested in brother's death." I clicked on it, and there was a photo of him being walked out of his house in handcuffs. John's parents called me that same day. His mom was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "This can't be true," she kept saying. "My son wouldn't do this. He couldn't." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. I was angry at them for the lawsuit and for taking his side, but I wasn't trying to destroy their whole family. I just wanted the truth. His dad got on the phone. "You need to tell the police this is a mistake. They'll listen to you." "I can't do that. We're talking about our son. I'm talking about mine too." That shut him up. John was going to be my husband. Someone killed him. "Don't you want to know who?" They hung up on me. The next week was insane. Apparently, Detective Hayes had gotten a search warrant for John's apartment, the one he'd been living in before we found a place together. They found his old laptop in a closet. I'd completely forgotten about it since he'd gotten a new one for work. Hayes called to tell me what they'd found. Your fiance kept emails. Lots of them. Turns out he confronted his brother about borrowing money from their parents under false pretenses. What do you mean? The brother told the parents he needed money for medical bills, but John found out he was using it for gambling. John threatened to tell their parents the truth. When was this? About 8 months before the accident. Jesus. John had known his brother was lying to their family, and the brother knew that John knew. That was motive right there. But it got worse. Hayes told me they'd also found a safety deposit box key in John's belongings that I'd never seen before. I went to the bank with Hayes and we opened it together. Inside was a folder full of documents, photographs of text messages, a journal, bank statements. John had been documenting everything. I sat in the bank vault reading through the journal while Hayes photographed everything for evidence. John's handwriting filled page after page. He wrote about seeing his brother at a casino, about the threatening phone calls his brother had been getting, about the day his brother asked him to co-sign on a loan and then got violent when John said no. "I don't know what to do," John had written on one page. "He's my brother, but he's also dangerous. I'm scared of what he might do if he gets desperate enough." My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the journal. The prosecutor's office offered John's brother a plea deal. They wanted to get this over with quickly, and a plea deal meant no trial, no public spectacle, just a guilty plea and a sentencing hearing. The brother's lawyer came to them asking to reduce the charge from murder to criminally negligent homicide. Detective Hayes called to ask what I thought, since I was technically the closest thing to next of kin now. "It's your call," he said. "If you want us to push for the trial, we'll do it." What does criminally negligent homicide mean? It means he didn't necessarily intend to kill John, but his actions were so reckless that it resulted in death. Lighter sentence. "No," I said immediately. "No deal. He planned this. He cut the brake lines. That's not an accident or negligence." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." The plea deal fell through. But then at one of the court hearings, something happened that I wasn't expecting. John's sister, the same one who'd been harassing me about the ring, stood up during the hearing and asked to speak to the judge. She was crying and her hands were shaking. "I need to say something," she said. "My brother, he told me what he did 2 months ago when he was drunk. He said John's death was supposed to look like an accident, so he could collect on an insurance policy. I kept quiet because I was scared and because he's my brother. But I can't anymore. I can't keep lying. The courtroom went completely silent. Even the judge looked shocked. The prosecutor asked her to repeat what she'd just said, and she did. Louder this time. She admitted that her brother had confessed to killing John. After that hearing, things moved fast. The police started digging into this insurance policy, the sister mentioned, and they found it. It was a forged policy. The brother had somehow gotten John's signature, probably traced it or something, and had taken out a $200,000 policy naming himself as the beneficiary. He'd been making payments on it from a credit card for months. The insurance company had actually flagged it as suspicious before John died, but they hadn't finished their investigation yet. If they'd moved just a little faster, maybe John would still be alive. I also found out something else around this time. John's grandmother had passed away a year before John died. She'd left a big inheritance to be split among her grandchildren, but only when they got married. It was this weird old-fashioned thing, where she wanted to make sure the money went toward building families or whatever. John's share would have been about $150,000. The brother had been planning to claim that John was never really engaged, since there was supposedly no family heirloom ring. Without a legitimate engagement, he could have contested John's portion and tried to take it for himself. That's why they wanted the ring so badly. It wasn't about sentiment or family legacy. It was about money. It was always about money. Detective Hayes told me they'd also recovered text messages from the brother's phone. He'd been researching brake failure accidents and mechanical sabotage methods 3 weeks before John died. He'd searched for things like how to cut brake lines without detection and do brake lines break in car crashes. This guy wasn't smart enough to cover his tracks, Hayes said. He searched this stuff on his regular phone. No incognito mode. Nothing. The prosecutor decided to go for first-degree murder instead of manslaughter. The evidence of premeditation was too strong to ignore. The brother had planned this for weeks, maybe months. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment thing or an accident. This was calculated. The brother's lawyer tried to get another plea deal, offering 20 years in prison this time. The prosecutor asked me again what I thought. Trial, I said. I want a trial. So that's what we did. The trial started in November, 8 months after John died. I had to take time off work to be there. The prosecutor told me I'd probably be called to testify, and I wanted to be there for the whole thing anyway. The jury selection took 3 days, then opening statements. The prosecutor laid out the whole case, the financial motive, the premeditation, the physical evidence. The defense's opening was basically that the brake line cut could have happened during the crash itself and that John's will was just paranoid, rambling. I testified on day 4. The prosecutor asked me about John's behavior in the weeks before he died, about his relationship with his brother, about the will he'd left with Kate. The defense attorney tried to make it seem like John had mental health problems and that I was biasing the investigation because I was angry about the ring lawsuit. Isn't it true that you wanted revenge against the family? The defense attorney asked me. I wanted the truth, I said. There's a difference. The forensic expert who examined the car testified next. He brought photos and diagrams showing exactly where the brake line had been cut and why it couldn't have happened during the crash. The angle was wrong, he said. The depth was wrong. The cut was made with a specific tool while the car was stationary, not from impact damage. How can you be sure? The defense attorney asked. Because I've examined hundreds of crash scenes, the expert said. And in 20 years, I've never seen an impact create a cut like this. It's physically impossible given the angle and force involved. The prosecutor also brought in a witness I didn't know about, some guy who lived in John's apartment building. He testified that he'd seen the brother underneath John's car in the parking garage 2 nights before the accident. He thought the guy was just helping with maintenance and didn't think anything of it at the time. But when he saw the news about the arrest, he came forward. What was he doing under the car? The prosecutor asked. I don't know exactly, but he had tools with him. Looked like he was working on something underneath. The defense tried to tear this guy apart on cross-examination, suggesting his memory was faulty or that he was lying for attention, but the guy stuck to his story. He was calm and consistent, and the jury seemed to believe him. The worst part of the trial was when the brother testified. His lawyer put him on the stand, which I thought was a stupid move, but I guess they were desperate. He sat up there and told this whole story about how John had been trying to set him up. My brother had it out for me, he said. Ever since college when we dated the same girl and she picked me. He never got over it. He planted that will. He probably cut his own brake line just to frame me. It was such obvious bullshit that I actually laughed out loud in the courtroom. The judge gave me a look but didn't say anything. The prosecutor destroyed him on cross-examination. You're saying your brother cut his own brake line, knowing it would kill him, just to frame you for murder? I don't know. Maybe he didn't think it would actually kill him, but it did kill him. And you're suggesting he did that to himself? I'm saying I didn't do it. Then why did you lie about scrapping the car? I didn't lie, I got confused about the dates. And the storage unit you rented with cash 2 weeks after his death? I needed storage for my stuff, but the only thing in that unit was your brother's wrecked car. He didn't have an answer for that. The prosecutor also brought up the brother's phone records. You called the storage facility to rent that unit 20 minutes after the police informed your family about the accident. Why were you thinking about storage space when you just found out your brother was dead? I don't remember that. The phone records say otherwise. Then, I don't know. I was in shock. I wasn't thinking clearly. Clearly enough to immediately rent a storage unit and move the car before anyone could examine it. The defense attorney tried to argue that the brothers' gambling addiction was a mitigating factor. They brought in some expert who talked about addiction and impulse control and how gambling changes your brain chemistry. But the prosecutor countered with all the evidence of planning and premeditation. This wasn't an impulsive act. This was calculated over weeks. The prosecution also revealed something I didn't know about. The brother had apparently been researching John's estate and the inheritance money. They found searches on his computer for how to access deceased sibling inheritance and requirements for claiming family inheritance. He'd even contacted the estate lawyer pretending to be handling John's affairs, asking specific questions about what happened to John's share if he died before getting married. "You were researching how to steal your brother's inheritance before he was even dead," the prosecutor said. "Weren't you?" "I was just curious. Curious enough to contact the lawyer and pretend to be managing his estate? I wanted to help the family. By taking money that wasn't yours?" The jury deliberated for 3 days. I stayed in a hotel near the courthouse with Kate, who'd taken time off work to be there with me. We didn't talk much, just waited. On the second day, the jury asked to see the forensic evidence again. The photos of the cut brake line. That seemed like a good sign to me. On the third day, we got the call that the jury had reached a verdict. We rushed back to the courthouse and sat in the gallery while everyone filed in. The jury foreman was this older guy with gray hair. The judge asked if they'd reached a verdict, and he said yes. "On the count of murder in the first degree, how do you find guilty? On the count of evidence tampering, how do you find guilty? On the count of insurance fraud, how do you find guilty?" I heard John's mom start crying behind me. His dad just sat there staring straight ahead. The brothers showed no emotion at all as the verdicts were read, just stared at the table in front of him. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. The judge said I could read a victim impact statement if I wanted to. I spent those 2 weeks trying to figure out what to say. How do you sum up what losing someone means? How do you explain the weight of it? In the end, I kept it short. I stood at the podium in the courtroom and looked right at the brother. "John died scared," I said. "He knew something was wrong. He knew you were a threat. He wrote it down because he was afraid and he wanted someone to know the truth if something happened to him. And he was right to be afraid. You killed him. Your own brother. And for what? Money? Money you didn't even get?" I didn't cry. I didn't ask for a specific sentence. I just wanted him to hear it and know that I knew what he'd done. The judge gave him life in prison with possibility of parole after 30 years. The insurance fraud charges added another 5 years on top of that. His lawyer immediately filed an appeal, but the prosecutor told me afterward that it was unlikely to succeed. The evidence was too strong. A few weeks after the sentencing, I got a check in the mail from John's employer. Apparently, he'd had a life insurance policy through work that I didn't know about. It was $50,000 and it named me as the beneficiary. I used it to pay off all the legal fees and then put the rest toward a down payment on a house. The house John and I were supposed to buy together. Around the same time, John's parents reached out through their lawyer. They wanted to meet with me to discuss reconciliation. They wanted to establish a memorial fund in John's name and include me in the family again. I wasn't sure about it at first, but my lawyer said it might be good for closure. So I agreed to meet them at a neutral location with my lawyer present. We met at a conference room in my lawyer's office. John's mom looked like she'd aged 10 years since the funeral. His dad couldn't make eye contact with me. They sat on one side of the table, me and my lawyer on the other. "We're sorry," his mom said right away, "for everything. The lawsuit, not believing you, all of it. We should have listened." His dad cleared his throat. "We enabled him, our oldest son. We knew he had problems, but we kept bailing him out, kept making excuses. We didn't want to see it. We didn't want to believe he could do something like this," his mom added. She was crying again. "But the evidence, it's undeniable. And we're sorry we put you through that trial. We should have believed you from the start." I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry at them, but another part of me just felt sad. They'd lost 2 sons in a way. One was dead and one was in prison for life. "We want to give you John's share of his grandmother's inheritance," his dad said. "It's $150,000. It should have gone to him when you got married, and we feel like it should go to you now. I wasn't expecting that. I don't need your money. It's not our money, it's John's, and he would have wanted you to have it." After some discussion with my lawyer, I agreed to accept it, but I told them I needed time before we could have any kind of family relationship. They said they understood and they wouldn't push me. We also agreed to contribute to the memorial fund they were setting up, a scholarship fund for kids pursuing John's field of work. I said I'd donate, but I didn't want any active role in managing it. The months after the trial were weird. I was relieved it was over, but also kind of empty. Like I'd been running on adrenaline and anger for so long that I didn't know what to do without it. 6 months after sentencing, I got a notification that the brothers' appeal had been denied. The appeals court found no merit in any of his claims. The conviction stood. He'd be in prison for at least 30 years and probably longer given the insurance fraud charges. I moved into a small house about an hour away from where John and I had lived. I needed a fresh start, somewhere without memories on every corner. The house had a little garden in the back, and I planted the same flowers that had been at John's funeral, white lilies and blue hydrangeas. I kept the ring. Not on my finger, though. I put it on a chain and wore it around my neck. Sometimes I'd touch it during the day, just to remember. About a year after the trial, I got a Facebook message from John's sister, the one who testified against her brother. She said she wanted to talk without lawyers or parents involved, just the two of us. I wasn't sure about it, but I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. She looked terrible when she showed up, dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in weeks. "I'm in therapy now," she said as soon as we sat down, trying to deal with the guilt. I knew what he did and I stayed quiet for months. If I'd said something sooner, maybe the investigation would have gone faster. Maybe the family wouldn't have put you through the lawsuit. "You were scared," I said. "That's not an excuse. You were grieving and I helped make it worse by harassing you about the ring." She started crying. "I'm so sorry. For all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. We didn't become friends or anything, but we agreed to check in with each other sometimes." She was trying to rebuild her life, and I respected that. A few months later, I went back to the jewelry store where John bought the ring. I'm not sure why. Maybe I just wanted to see it again. Remember that day. The owner recognized me as soon as I walked in. "I remember you too," she said, smiling. "The fantasy rings." He was so excited about the design. "Do you still have the design notes?" I asked. She went into the back and came out with a file folder. Inside were John's sketches and notes from when he was working with them on the design. In the margins, he'd drawn little hearts, and there were notes about my favorite fantasy movies, details about the characters I loved, elements he wanted incorporated into the ring. "He spent 2 hours here picking out every detail," the owner said. "He kept saying he wanted it to be perfect for you." I cried right there in the store, just completely broke down. The owner didn't say anything, just handed me tissues and let me sit in the back room until I pulled myself together. About 18 months after the sentencing, Detective Hayes called me out of the blue. "Thought you should know. Your guy tried to recant his sister's testimony, said she was coerced by the prosecution." "What?" "Yeah, he's been writing letters from prison, trying to get family members to change their stories. Says his sister lied under pressure and that we threatened her to testify against him." "That's insane." She testified voluntarily. "I know. And the prison officials found the letters before he could send them. They're adding witness tampering to his record. It means any chance of early parole is basically gone now." I felt a weird sense of relief hearing that. Like, as long as he was in prison, I could keep living my life without looking over my shoulder. Detective Hayes cleared his throat. "How are you doing?" "Really? I'm okay," I said. And I meant it. I'm actually okay.